The Merodian boarding party moved through the ruptured hull of the ESS Pathfinder with practiced efficiency. Their environmental suits, sleek and iridescent, protected them from the vacuum and radiation leaking from the human vessel's damaged systems. Squad leader Trizval motioned for his team to spread out and secure the bridge. Primitive technology. Communication specialist Mindrel observed, mandibles clicking in amusement as she interfaced with the human computer systems. Their navigation algorithms are centuries behind ours. Yet something about the ship's layout troubled Trizval. Why were the vital systems so exposed? Why was the bridge positioned at the front of the vessel, vulnerable to direct attack? No spacefaring species would design a ship so inefficiently unless... Check for hidden compartments, he ordered suddenly. This vessel isn't what it appears to be. The medical officer, Pax Noom, knelt beside an unconscious human crew member. Remarkable resilience, he noted, analyzing readings from his scanner. This one has sustained injuries that would kill a Merodian, yet life signs are stabilizing. In the engine room, Engineer Kavlor removed a panel and froze. Squad leader, you need to see this. Beneath the outdated exterior of the propulsion system lay a compact device of unfamiliar design. Its power signature was minimal, currently dormant, but the craftsmanship was unlike anything in the Merodian database. It appears to be some form of quantum communication array, Kavlor suggested. But the material composition... I've never seen anything like it. Back on the bridge, Mindrel made a discovery of her own. These aren't military personnel, she reported, examining crew records. They're scientists, explorers. Their mission parameters indicate peaceful contact protocols. Trizval accessed the ship's visual logs, watching the final moments before their attack. The human captain, Commander Ta-Wan Song, according to ship records, had ordered his crew to maintain defensive positions only. Even when the Merodian warning shots had crippled their vessel, Song had given no order to return fire, despite weapon systems showing ready status. Why didn't they defend themselves? Trizval wondered aloud. The answer came as Pax Noom completed his medical scan of the bridge crew. Their neural patterns show evidence of extensive psychological conditioning, he reported. Not brainwashing as we understand it, but training to maintain calm under extreme pressure. Squad leader Trizval felt the first stirrings of unease. This wasn't the behavior of a primitive species encountering superior technology. This was the behavior of disciplined professionals following protocols that assumed capture was a possibility, even a likelihood. The Merodian boarding party gathered the unconscious humans, transferring them to stasis chambers for the journey back to the hegemony central worlds. As they departed, Trizval ordered a final sweep of the vessel. In the captain's quarters, sealed behind layers of encryption that took even Mindrel several minutes to bypass, they found a personal log entry, recorded shortly before the Merodian ship had appeared on their sensors. The human captain's face filled the screen, his expression neutral but his eyes alert. Day 87 of Deep Periphery Exploration. We've detected unusual energy signatures consistent with Directive 7 parameters. If confirmed, this would represent first contact with a non-human civilization. Implementing First Contact Protocol Epsilon. All systems reconfigured to exploration profile. Weapon systems offline but accessible. Quantum communicator ready for emergency transmission. If you're viewing this message under duress, implementation has failed. In that case, remember, we came in peace. What follows is their choice. The message ended, leaving the Merodians staring at one another in confusion. It wasn't until their return to hegemony space that the full implications would become clear. They hadn't encountered an insignificant species making its first tentative steps into space. They had poked a slumbering giant. Aboard the UNSC Retribution, Admiral Volkov strode through corridors, humming with controlled tension. The massive warship, officially designated as a diplomatic deterrence vessel, represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, a fact deliberately obscured from galactic awareness until now. Status report. she demanded, entering the Tactical Operations Center where holographic displays tracked Marodian fleet movements in real time. 17 capital ships, 42 support vessels, Lieutenant Commander Reyes reported. They're arranging in defensive formation around their command station. Planetary defense batteries are powering up. Volkov nodded. And our people? Biosignatures detected on the third orbital platform. Life signs stable but sedated. The Admiral's artificial hand clenched, servomotors whirring softly. The prosthetic, a reminder of the Mars Rebellion, where she'd lost her original arm saving civilians, was stronger than flesh but retained perfect tactile sensitivity. A metaphor for humanity itself. Enhanced but not inhuman. Deploy reconnaissance microdrones, she ordered. I want eyes on our people before we make any moves. The ship's eye, Athena, materialized as a translucent figure beside the tactical display. Admiral, I've completed analysis of Marodian communications. Their security encryption is rudimentary. They're in chaos. Their scientific division is demanding access to the human prisoners, while their military leadership debates whether to attempt diplomacy or demonstrate force. Volkov's smile held no warmth. Let's help them make that decision. On her command, the Retribution activated systems that had remained dormant during their approach. Shields that could withstand point-blank nuclear detonation. Kinetic batteries capable of accelerating projectiles to relativistic speeds. Most importantly, the quantum entanglement communications array linked directly to Earth Command went active, confirming humanity's presence in this sector of space. Open a channel to all Marodian frequencies, Volkov ordered. Let them see us. The main view screen displayed the Marodian Command Center, where High Commander Lixvon stood surrounded by advisors. The alien leader's shock at being so easily accessed was evident in the sudden stiffening of his neck frills. This is Admiral Helena Volkov of the United Nations Space Command Vessel Retribution. You are holding 27 citizens of Earth against their will. Return them unharmed, and we will depart peacefully. You have 1 hour to comply. The translation software rendered her words in perfect Marodian, complete with the formal honorifics of their military caste. Another calculated detail revealing deeper knowledge of their society than should have been possible. As the communication ended, Dr. Eliza Novak, the ship's xenoanthropologist, approached Volkov with a data tablet. They won't capitulate, she said quietly. Their cultural framework prohibits submission to perceived inferior species. They need to save face. Volkov nodded. I'm counting on it. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their primary defensive satellites. Minimal yield, precision strikes only. No casualties. The prisoners, Admiral, Reyes asked. Commander Song is no ordinary captain, Volkov replied. By now, he's gathered everything we need to know about the Marodian hegemony. We're just providing him with an opportunity to share it. In the silence that followed, the ship's systems completed final battle preparations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, without the nervous energy that characterized troops entering combat for the first time. Because this wasn't their first time. The Retribution and her crew had been involved in operations throughout the galaxy. Operations erased from official records, maintaining humanity's carefully crafted image of technological modesty. That facade was about to be shattered. Sub-Commander Vextal watched in horror as the Marodian flagship Celestial Dominance listed to port, its primary propulsion cluster sheared away by a human kinetic strike, so precise it had avoided both the reactor core and life support systems. Impossible, his tactical officer whispered. Their targeting systems would need to calculate through our shield harmonics, compensate for stellar wind variance, and focus, Vextal snapped. Adjust formation pattern. Have all vessels randomize shield frequencies. But the human warship had already anticipated this response. As the Marodian fleet scrambled to adopt a new defensive posture, the Retribution launched what appeared to be a swarm of small projectiles. The Merodian point defense systems registered them as missiles and responded accordingly, energy beams lashing out to intercept. The missiles detonated prematurely, not from the defensive fire, but on a predetermined timer. The space between the fleets filled with a shimmering cloud of metallic particulates that began absorbing and refracting energy weapons. Smart chaff, the Merodian weapons officer realized too late. Our targeting sensors are blind. Through this manufactured nebula, objects accelerated toward the Merodian vessels at velocities that defied conventional physics. Not missiles but armor-piercing munitions containing specialized payloads. They struck with surgical precision, targeting weapons arrays, engine nacelles, and communication nodes. Systems failed across the Merodian fleet, but life support remained untouched. In the confusion, no one noticed the stealth dropship that detached from the Retribution's ventral bay, its hull absorbing rather than reflecting sensor sweeps as it slipped toward the Merodian detention center. Aboard the Lunar Sentinel, a Merodian cruiser that had thus far avoided the worst of the engagement, Science Elder Nicevoth observed the battle with growing fascination rather than fear. "Record everything," she instructed her research team. "The humans are demonstrating combat methodologies we've never encountered." Her assistant, Ren Lal, looked up from his data terminal in confusion. "Elder, they're crippling our fleet. Why are you?" "Observing the most important scientific data of our generation," she interrupted. "Look at their attack pattern. They're neutralizing our combat capability while minimizing casualties. Even their kinetic weapons, they are using low-density impactors that disperse on impact." The revelation struck Ren Lal suddenly. "They're not trying to destroy us. They're disarming us." Nicevoth nodded, her cranial ridges flushing with excitement despite the dire situation. A species capable of this level of technological precision, yet choosing restraint. It defies everything we understand about evolutionary imperatives. On the main bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Volkov monitored the battle through tactical overlays. Each Merodian vessel appeared as a three-dimensional schematic with critical systems highlighted. "Target the command vessel's secondary communication array," she ordered. "Isolate the flagship from the fleet." As her orders were executed, a junior officer approached with a secure datapad. "Admiral, Special Operations Team Bravo has breached the detention facility. Commander Song has been located." Volkov's expression remained neutral, but the slight relaxation of her shoulders spoke volumes. "Excellent. Tell them we'll need 10 more minutes of chaos." She turned toward the main view screen where a Merodian vessel attempted a desperate maneuver to flank the human warship. The Retribution responded with a burst from maneuvering thrusters that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size, elegantly sidestepping the attack. "Let's give them something to really study," Volkov said. "Deploy the gravitational lensing system." As the device activated, the massive human warship seemed to blur, its outline becoming indistinct as the fabric of space itself bent around its hull. Commander Song moved silently through the detention facility's maintenance shaft, his movements fluid despite 3 months of captivity. The Merodian guards had made a critical error. They'd interpreted his meditative stillness as resignation rather than preparation. The neural techniques developed for deep space isolation had served him well. While appearing cooperative, he'd compartmentalized his mind. One section engaging with interrogators, another meticulously mapping the facility, memorizing guard rotations, and studying Merodian physiology. He paused at a junction, sensing vibrations through the metal conduit. The facility was on high alert. But not because of his escape. Something larger was happening. Sliding open an access panel, he slipped into an environmental control room. The monitoring screens displayed chaotic scenes, Merodian vessels under attack from a massive human warship. The Retribution had arrived. "Right on schedule," Song murmured, allowing himself a brief smile. He accessed the terminal, his fingers moving with practiced certainty despite the alien interface. During interrogation sessions, he'd memorized the syntax patterns of Merodian command language, watching his captors input codes from the corner of his eye. The facility's blueprint appeared on screen. Song identified the communications hub 3 levels above his position. Not the most direct route to freedom, but strategically essential. As he prepared to move, the door slid open. A Merodian technician entered, freezing in shock at the sight of the escaped human. Song moved with devastating speed, targeting pressure points unique to Merodian physiology that he'd identified during seemingly casual observations of his guards. The technician collapsed, nervous system temporarily overloaded but undamaged. Song arranged the unconscious alien in a recovery position, ensuring proper blood flow to vital organs. "Nothing personal," he said, removing the technician's access card and communication device. The station rocked suddenly, impacts from the battle reaching even this secure facility. Alarms blared, and emergency lighting bathed the corridors in pulsing blue. Perfect cover for his movement. Song navigated through maintenance passages, avoiding the main corridors where guards rushed to security stations. He encountered 2 more Merodians, neutralizing both with the same efficient, non-lethal techniques. The communication hub's security was substantial. Triple-layered biometric locks designed to prevent unauthorized access. Under normal circumstances, it would be impenetrable. But these weren't normal circumstances. Song removed a flexible material from the lining of his boot, a substance that appeared to be standard insulation but was actually compressed nanomaterial technology. When exposed to air, it expanded, forming a small device that interfaced with the Merodian security panel. "Primitive, they called us," Song muttered as the device cycled through algorithmic combinations at quantum speeds. The door slid open. Inside, he found precisely what he needed, a direct connection to the Merodian battlenet. As he uploaded the intelligence he'd gathered, he established a secure channel to the Retribution. Tango Sierra reporting. He transmitted, using his operational codename. Package secure, intelligence upload commencing. Admiral Volkov's voice responded immediately. Acknowledged, Tango Sierra. Extraction team is 2 minutes out. Battle space is contained. Song transmitted critical tactical data, shield frequencies, weapons capabilities, command structures. 3 months of methodical intelligence gathering compressed into a 60-second burst transmission. As he completed the upload, he heard the familiar sound of breaching charges on the exterior wall. His extraction had arrived. A team of special operations personnel in advanced infiltration suits. The team leader's faceplate retracted, revealing a grin. "Commander Song." Admiral Sensor compliments and apologizes for the delay. Song nodded. "Right on time, Lieutenant. Though I was starting to enjoy the accommodations." The diplomatic chamber fell silent as Admiral Volkov activated a sequence of holograms depicting Earth's biological ecosystems. "This is the gravity well we evolved in," she explained, displaying comparative charts. 1.3 times the galactic average for habitable worlds. Our musculature and skeletal structure developed accordingly. The Merodian High Commander, Lixvon, studied the data with growing comprehension. "Your species' physical resilience is not our most significant adaptation," Volkov continued. "This is." The hologram shifted to brain scans, human neural pathways compared to those of various galactic species. The differences were subtle but profound. "Isolation," she explained. "Earth developed in a stellar backwater. The nearest sentient species was over 200 light-years away, while your civilizations communicated and shared technologies across relatively small interstellar distances. We evolved completely alone." Commander Song stepped forward, now dressed in a formal UNSC uniform. "Merodian historical records indicate your species achieved spaceflight after receiving transmission leakage from the Centauri Collective. Your scientific development was accelerated by external influence." The Merodian science elder, Nisvoth, mandibles twitching in discomfort, reluctantly confirmed. "We built upon foundations laid by others. Most known species did. Humanity had no such advantage," Volkov continued. "Every technological step, from fire to fusion, was achieved in isolation. It created a unique evolutionary pressure, innovation or extinction. A new hologram appeared. Earth historical records showing devastating wars, environmental catastrophes, and near-extinction events. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves, Song explained. Global war using primitive atomic weapons. When the dust settled, we faced a choice: continue our self-destructive path or channel our aggressive tendencies differently. Volkov nodded to a technician who removed a small metallic cube from a secure case. This is a complete neurological map of a human child. 10 trillion synaptic connections. Our solution wasn't to eliminate our aggressive instincts, but to redirect them. We developed the harmonization protocol. The Merodians leaned forward, their scientific curiosity overcoming diplomatic reserve. Not genetic engineering, Song clarified, anticipating their assumption, but a comprehensive educational and psychological framework implemented from early childhood. We maintain our capacity for aggression, but pair it with rigorous ethical constraints. Every human ship captain undergoes thousands of hours of specialized training to balance decisiveness with restraint. The hologram shifted again, displaying statistics from human space exploration over the last century. The Merodians noticed something striking: a deliberate pattern of contact and withdrawal, exploratory missions that probed borders before retreating. You've been mapping the galaxy, High Commander Lixvon realized, assessing potential threats and allies. Volkov nodded. The Pathfinder was one of dozens of evaluation vessels. Their mission was to determine whether your hegemony represented a potential threat to human interests or a possible diplomatic partner. And now you have your answer, Lixvon said quietly. We do, Volkov replied. But before we conclude these discussions, there's something you should know. Something your long-range sensors have likely already detected. She activated a final hologram showing the edge of the system, where the spatial distortion of multiple slip space ruptures was forming. The first fleet is arriving, Volkov said. 43 heavy combat vessels and support craft. Standard protocol when diplomatic contact has been established. They're not hostile unless provoked, but I wanted you to understand the full context of our conversation. The unspoken message was clear. What the Merodians had witnessed was merely the beginning of human capability. The visual feed from the outer colony outpost Sigma 7 played on the main display in the Retribution's war room. Static occasionally disrupted the transmission, but the horror remained clear. Structures torn apart, surfaces coated with an iridescent biofilm, and colonists suspended in translucent membranes. The attack began 38 hours ago, reported the Merodian Security Director, Krevtal. By the time our response vessels arrived, the Voidborn had already moved on. Only automated recordings remained. Admiral Volkov studied the footage with grim focus. Dr. Chen, analysis. Dr. Karina Chen, the Retribution's xenobiologist, indicated specific regions of the biofilm. This isn't just destruction, it's harvesting. The Voidborn aren't consuming these victims, they're processing them, converting organic matter into something else. Commander Song noticed a pattern in the destruction. The damage isn't random. They targeted communication systems first, then defense grids, then population centers. Methodical. Like us, Volkov observed quietly. The Merodian Elder Council shifted uncomfortably. High Commander Lixvon addressed the obvious question. How are your people resistant to their psychic attacks? Our historical records indicate the Voidborn's primary weapon was mind paralysis. Dr. Chen displayed neurological scans of human and Merodian brains side by side. Your species evolved in a sector with minimal stellar radiation. Your neural architecture is elegant, efficient, and vulnerable to specific frequency disruptions. Humans evolved under a star with frequent solar flares and in higher radiation environments. Our neural pathways are more chaotic, redundant, with natural shielding mechanisms. Inefficient by design, added Song. Our brains require more energy, but the trade-off is resilience against external manipulation. The war room's atmosphere grew tenser as tactical simulations ran on secondary displays. Voidborne attack patterns, spread vectors, estimated fleet strength. The projections were uniformly grim. The Merodian hegemony cannot stand alone against this threat, admitted Lix Vaughn, his scales dim with the gravity of the situation. Neither can humanity, Volkov responded, surprising the Merodians. We have the military capacity to engage the Voidborne, but not the knowledge of their historical patterns or biological weaknesses. Lieutenant Reyes activated a new holographic display, a three-dimensional star map of known space. We've tracked Voidborne emergence points. They're following a specific pattern, moving inward from the galactic rim toward population centers. Like water circling a drain, murmured Song. Elder Nicefoth suddenly straightened, mandibles clicking in excitement. The archives of Sol, ancient records from the previous Voidborne incursion, preserved in our oldest repository. They were sealed away, considered mythological rather than historical. Where? Demanded Volkov. Our ancestral homeworld, in the Tygos system, but it's 4 light years beyond the projected Voidborne advance. We'd never reach it before they do. Admiral Volkov exchanged a glance with Commander Song. 4 light years isn't an obstacle for slipspace-capable vessels. A joint mission, Song suggested. Human transportation, Merodian knowledge. The archives are protected by biometric locks keyed to elder genetic markers, Nicefoth explained. I would need to accompany any expedition. The request would have been unthinkable days ago. A Merodian elder voluntarily boarding a human vessel. Now it seemed the only logical course. Volkov nodded decisively. Commander Song will lead the mission aboard our stealth corvette Silent Runner. Elder Nicefoth and a science team of her choosing will accompany, along with a human security detachment. As arrangements were finalized, Merodian and human officers began coordinating with unprecedented cooperation. In the corner of the war room, Dr. Chen continued examining the biofilm samples, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Admiral, she called softly, there's something else you should see. The Voidborne aren't just harvesting. They're adapting. The planetary shields of Mirud Prime flickered under the sustained assault. Massive Voidborne bioships, part organic, part mechanical constructs, methodically probed for weaknesses in the defensive grid. Their hulls pulsed with eldritch energy as they launched wave after wave of smaller attack craft. In the subterranean command center, Admiral Volkov and High Commander Lix Vaughn stood before a 3-dimensional battle projection. Human and Merodian officers worked side by side, their earlier animosity replaced by grim cooperation. Sectors 3 and 7 can't hold much longer, reported a Merodian tactical officer. Shield harmonics are destabilizing under the molecular disruption fields. Volkov analyzed the attack pattern, noting a peculiarity. They're concentrating fire on our communication nodes. Why target those instead of power generators? A human communication specialist looked up from her console. Admiral, we're detecting anomalous signal bursts whenever their weapons contact our shields. Data packets embedded in the energy discharge itself. They're not just attacking, Lix Vaughn realized. They're communicating, downloading information about our defensive systems with each strike. On the tactical display, the Voidborne vessels suddenly shifted formation, concentrating fire on the newly identified vulnerabilities. 3 shield segments failed simultaneously. Evacuation ships in sectors 3 and 7 are still launching, reported Lieutenant Reyes. Estimated 8 minutes until complete civilian withdrawal. We need more time, Volkov said, turning to the Merodian weapons specialist. You said your resonance cannons were ineffective against their hulls. The bioships absorb energy weapons, confirmed the Merodian, and regenerate too quickly for kinetic impacts to cause lasting damage. Volkov's artificial hand clenched. Lieutenant, transmit tactical package Sierra 9 to all human vessels. Authorization Volkov Omega-3. Throughout the system, human warships began adjusting their weapon systems, Specialized munitions were loaded, projectiles containing a technological adaptation that had never been deployed in actual combat. "What are you doing?" asked Lixvan. "Changing the rules of engagement," Volkov replied. "If they adapt to our attacks, we'll give them something new to process." The human fleet launched a coordinated barrage. Instead of conventional weapons, they fired projectiles that burst into clouds of self-replicating nanites, programmed to target the unique molecular structure of voidborne biofilms. Where the clouds contacted voidborne vessels, the organic components began to calcify. But the advantage was temporary. Within minutes, the voidborne ships began generating electromagnetic pulses that disabled the nanites. "They're adapting even faster than predicted," Volkov noted with grim admiration. The battle projection suddenly highlighted an incoming transmission. From the silent runner, Commander Song's voice came through, distorted but audible. "Retribution, we've secured the archives. Transmitting data now. The Voidborne aren't individual ships. They're colony organisms sharing a distributed consciousness. Each vessel contains a neural node that coordinates with the others. Destroy the nodes, and the vessels become inert." The transmission included tactical overlays identifying the previously undetectable neural nodes on each Voidborne ship. "Can we confirm this?" Volkov demanded. Dr. Chen, monitoring from the scientific section, verified. "The data correlates with our biological analyses. But Admiral, these nodes shift position every 76 seconds. We'd need perfect synchronization to hit them all simultaneously." Lixvan stepped forward. "Our targeting systems lack the necessary precision, but ours don't," Volkov interrupted. She opened a channel to all human vessels. "All ships, implement synchronized strike protocol. Target packages being transmitted now. Fire on my mark." The human warships moved into optimal firing positions, their advanced targeting systems locking onto the neural nodes with microsecond precision. Fire. The observation platform extended from the newly constructed Alliance headquarters, offering a panoramic view of the rebuilding efforts across the Merodian capital. Crystalline structures rose alongside distinctly human-influenced architecture, geometric precision complementing organic curves in a visual representation of their partnership. Commander Song, now Ambassador Song according to his new credentials, stood beside Elder Nicevoth as they watched a mixed team of human and Merodian engineers install a quantum communication relay. "The cultural integration programs are exceeding expectations," Nicevoth noted, consulting her data terminal. "Particularly among the younger generations. Human literature and art have become quite fashionable in academic circles." Song smiled. "And human universities report record applications for Merodian philosophical studies. Your people's perspective on cosmic harmony offers an interesting counterbalance to our more action-oriented tendencies." Below them, a human child and Merodian juvenile passed by, engaged in animated conversation, while manipulating a shared holographic interface, a game that taught both species' languages simultaneously. Admiral Volkov joined them, having just concluded a strategic briefing with the Joint Defense Council. Her uniform now bore both UNSC insignia and the crystalline emblem of the Alliance. "The Voidborne have retreated beyond the galactic rim," she reported. "Long-range probes indicate they've entered a dormancy cycle. The xenobiology team believes our attack on their neural network may have forced an evolutionary reset. They'll return," Song said quietly. The archives were clear about their cyclical nature. "And we'll be ready," Volkov replied. "The defensive grid is expanding weekly. 17 more systems integrated just yesterday." A diplomatic shuttle approached, bearing representatives from the Centauri Collective, one of 3 formerly neutral powers now seeking Alliance membership. The Voidborne incursion had redrawn political boundaries across known space. "They fear us," Nicevoth observed as the shuttle docked. "No," Song corrected gently. "They respect the Alliance. Fear and respect are different reactions. Elder, we learned the distinction the hard way." In a secure laboratory beneath the surface, Dr. Chen, and a team of Merodian biologists continued their study of recovered voidborn tissue samples. Their work had yielded unexpected applications. Medical nanites based on modified voidborn cellular structures now accelerated healing for both species, while defensive technologies derived from the bioship's regenerative abilities strengthened planetary shields. From adversary to adversity to advancement, Volkov mused, watching a holographic display of the expanding Alliance territory, a pattern humanity knows well. The memorial ceremony began at sunset, a solemn remembrance of those lost in what historians already called the First Voidborn War. Human and Merodian families gathered together, their differences obvious yet increasingly irrelevant as they shared their grief and resolve. Song activated a small holoprojector, displaying the faces of the original Pathfinder crew, explorers whose capture had inadvertently sparked this new galactic order. They embarked to discover new civilizations. They never imagined they would help forge one. As the twin suns of the Merodian system dipped below the horizon, lights activated throughout the capital, not the traditional luminescence of Merodian design, but a hybrid technology developed through joint research. The city glowed with a warm radiance that symbolized their shared future. In orbital shipyards, vessels of unprecedented design took shape, hulls incorporating both human and Merodian engineering philosophies. Neither species could have conceived these ships alone. They represented genuine technological synthesis rather than mere cooperation. "What happens when the battlefield quakes next time?" asked a young Merodian officer nearby. Ambassador Song smiled. "The same thing that always happens when human warships approach. The only difference is, now we bring friends."